good, I think, area to focus on is, and it kind of it ties back again to the verse in Romans 8, but not being so hyper focused on the areas that we fall short or the things that we did wrong, or like things like that, because they do end up shaping us.
Mm-hmm.
I have I'm actually a self-published author as well.
Excellent.
I did a book. It actually started off as a self-deprecation project. Um, so I don't remember what it was, but I had gone through these series of a bunch of different ideas and stuff like that I had, where I would go in and I'd try to do something and it just wouldn't work out, and like I would just like be running up, hit my head against a brick wall, and it just wouldn't work out. And so I made a joke that I need to write a book and call it "How to Fail at Everything." And I was sat there, and that thought just kind of sat in my head, and I'm like, I could kind of do that and just like tear into myself in all these ways that I've done things horribly. And I mean, self-deprecation is fairly popular. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
this is something I could do. And so I started like doing it like that, and it didn't pan out. And so I'm sitting there like, I can't, like, I failed at writing a book on how to fail. And so just that, and it just kept coming back to that. And then I ended up I went back to, what was it? There's a video I saw. It was forever ago. I remember a youth pastor of mine had it in a sermon illustration one time. And it's like a commercial type thing, but it's talking about famous failures.
Hmm.
And the one that really stuck out to me that I remembered was Walt Disney. So he was fired from a newspaper because they said he lacked imagination and had no original ideas. Um, and then there's some that everyone knows. Like most people know, the Beatles were cut from Decca Recording Company because
Mm-hmm.
I think the quote was they didn't like their sound, and guitar music was out on its way out anyways. And I mean, so just, there's Michael Jordan, everyone knows about. And so there's all these different stories of people that have failed and they've turned it back around. And so what I ended up doing was I wrote every single chapter has 3 sections to it. The first section is I look at a biblical person. So there's one I look at, Joseph. I look at Paul. I look at David a couple times, and I'll look at where maybe they missed the mark. They didn't
Mm-hmm.
do what they were supposed to do, or even like Joseph. I did one. It was actually looking at like his wasn't really so much failure as it was just like he was doing things right and everything was not working, just going completely against him. And so I took one story like that for each chapter, and then I took a famous like person from history or a character or something like that, and then the third part of each one was a personal story, something I went through or did, and then ended up doing each chapter kind of broken down like that. But that was something that ended up being very therapeutic, I think, for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there was a lot of stuff that I had gone through or I had still been holding on to, things like that in the process of writing this, I had to revisit. I couldn't just leave it, but I was revisiting it from a much healthier mindset. From being in a much healthier mindset, I had really, like I said, started digging in, cultivating my relationship with God. And so instead of just rehashing a lot of the stuff, it was actually like going back and dealing with a lot of the stuff. But in doing that, I was able to see some of uh, the talents or the abilities or things like that that I have that I have now that I really owe to areas where I messed up before, or something bad happened to me before, or things along those lines. And we see that. I mean, it's a common theme throughout. I mean, throughout Scripture, throughout just history in general, but of seeing in action that God turning things around and using them for benefit, for glory. But yeah, I'll let you go ahead and jump in. Anything else you
Yeah.
want to throw out there?
I mean, God uses losers to get his work done. And we should all be very grateful for that. For every single person who's ever existed is a loser. And
Yep.
that's okay, because that's just who we are. We are sinful beings. We're going to screw up. We're going to do things that at the end of the day, why did I say that to that person? I love them. I would never want to hurt them, but I do it anyways. And yet at the end of the day, I mean, we have Peter right before Jesus is about to be killed, murdered on the cross. He denies him 3 times. And what does Jesus do? He looks at him. And if you look at what most commentators have to say, it's not a look of condemnation. It's not a look of hatred or anything like that. It's a look of pity and love. And like, I told you, but I'm not going to say I told you so kind of
Right.
look. And God dang it, if that isn't me, sometimes it's like, how can I do this to the same God who saved me from myself? And then you get to that whole idea. You brought the self-deprecating humor. Like, that's my bread and butter. Because it's like, I grew up, and I still am, a very prideful person. And I'm the greatest thing in the world. You should all look at me and say, Christian, you're the greatest person in the world. If Christian's not on screen, people should be asking, where's Christian? And that's not healthy. And when I would screw up when I was younger, I would get angry because people were laughing at me. Say, I tripped and fell down, or I have a stutter and a lisp. So when I screw that up, they'd laugh at me, and I'd get angry, and my parents would be like, hey, you can't keep doing this. You're going to get into a fight. You're going to cause harm to someone else. You got to learn to laugh at yourself. So that's when I started developing that. And along the way, it became something good, but also at times it'd be a defense mechanism. So you can't hurt me. I'm going to get there before you. Mm-hmm. And having to learn between the two. And that's why one of the reasons, I mean, I love Peter so much. Peter Parker as a character, as Spider-Man, is that he's doing the same thing. And one of the great things, you go back to canon events, in the story of this movie, it seems like Miles is an aberration according to the ideas that Miguel has. It's like, he shouldn't be Spider-Man. Like, it should have been the Peter Parker of your world, because you were there, he died. But we see in the first movie, because of Miles' intervention, he gets all these other spider people to be better than who they were when they first met him. Like, we get Peter B. Parker, goes back to his world, reunites with Mary Jane, restores their marriage, and because of Miles, he's emboldened to have a child. When before, that was one of the reasons that caused him not to be married anymore. Gwen is just rippling inside with like the death of her Peter Parker, and she hasn't forgiven herself for it. But she's starting to learn to accept what happened and then move on. Not to forget what happened, but to, be better then. And that doesn't happen without Miles' intervention. And that's exactly what God does for all of us. All of us screw ups, all of us losers. There are times when our canon events, we didn't even know they were canon events for someone else. In that, I said something that made someone laugh. Or I was there and I listened and I didn't say a word, which is very out of character. And I just listened to what someone had to say. And they've come to me later and said, you didn't try to fix the problem, which is also very anti-me. You just listened to what I said. And that's what I needed in that moment. And that's what we all have at some point in time, are those events that are going to mean the world to someone else. But for us, it was just a conversation. Not to say like I didn't care in that moment, but I didn't care in the same way that they will.
Right. No, that's good too. and that's something. I mean, I've I've had a couple times like that too, where and I've been on both ends of it, where I had somebody, I had an interaction with somebody, um, and it seemed like something that was so small and insignificant to
Mm-hmm.
me, and then after the fact, they came up to me, excuse me, and they told me like that was massive, massive for them.
Mm.
Um, or likewise, where I mean, just something simple. Um, Somebody went completely out of their way uh, to do something for me. One example I can think of, my um, my now wife, when we were dating, we lived uh, just over an hour apart, um, and we only got to see each other really like once, maybe twice a week. Um, and so it was a lot of like texting, calling, stuff like that. Um, but there was one particular moment, and I was very open with her early on, like, hey, I've gone through all this. I got a lot of baggage, so be sure that you're ready to take that before this goes any further. Um, and so she knew like some of the stuff that I dealt with and like mental issues because of what I'd gone through.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one time in particular that, I mean, it seems so small. I had gotten off of work, and I was, I don't remember where I went. I'd gone somewhere. And this is, I was at a point I had to move back in with my parents. And so I think I went to the gym. Anyways, it doesn't matter. But I was there, and I kind of was texting her a little bit, but it wasn't a whole lot. And I just like, I was in this funk mentally. I couldn't get out of it. And it was something so simple. I went back to my house, and she was there. Like she left work early, made the hour drive to come see me for like 2-3 hours before she had to turn back around and drive an hour again.
Mm.
Um, and so it was such a, I mean, small thing to her. But for me, like it ended up like being a huge moment for me. And really seeing that, like, okay, this is going to be different than how things were previously. Um, but that's why, too, I think we really need to be willing, as Christians, be willing to step outside of our comfort zone.
Mm.
And, like you said, sitting and listening to somebody, that's not something that you do typically.
Nope.
But, but that's, maybe that was a moment where, um, God was leading you to just sit and listen.
Mm-hmm.
And that ended up being a big impact for them. Or, step outside your comfort zone and uh, talk to somebody. Or, I'm good with talking with people that I'm familiar with, but it is very
Mm-hmm.
much outside my comfort zone to just like go up to a random person. Um, but there's been times where one of the times where I was on uh, I guess the giving end of an exchange like this. Um, there was I was going to get a haircut. There's a lady there, and she had showed up before me, and she was getting her son's haircut. And I was in and out very, very quickly. And as I was walking out, I just feel this nudge, like, you need to go ask them if they need prayer. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like, we're in the middle of this barbershop. I don't want to. And I felt it again. So I ended up going and talking to her, and they had some stuff going on. And so I prayed with her. And then her son was still getting his haircut. And so then as I walked out, I felt again, like, as I was
Mm.
standing there paying for my haircut, I felt again that I needed to go ahead and pay for hers as well. And I'm like, okay. So, I mean, I did it.
Yeah.
This was like, it was never seen this lady before. I never saw her since. Her
Mm-hmm.
her son either, but just from the short interaction that I did have with her, it it was a big deal that I mean I stopped and I talked to her. She had a little bit of faith. I don't know where I would say she was at as far as total beliefs, but um, you know she it was very clear that it was a big deal. That I mean, I stopped and asked her, but that I stood there and talked to her for a little bit. I took time out of my day to stand there and talk with her and then pray with her. And outside of my comfort zone, she probably had no idea that I was outside of my comfort zone, but
Yeah.
just standing in the middle of this barber shop, all kinds of people around, and just having a conversation with her and then praying and, you know, about the situation too. Um, it was very, very clear that and I don't know if she was going, I'm sure she was going through other stuff as well, but seeing her reaction to that was, um, I mean, almost brought me to tears, just, you know, kind of seeing how she was with it. But that's, I think as Christians, we need to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Mm.
Um, you know,
Mm.
I think sometimes God's going to call us to do things that are outside of what we want to do. Obviously, I do think he's gonna use our skills and our abilities and things like that. But where he really shines is when we are going away from what we normally do, going away from what we're comfortable with, and really listening to that guidance. And that's where I think we can see even more fruit. We can see being even more impactful for people. Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
I completely agree, Jesse, that there are things I'm really skilled at, and there are things that I never want to do in my Christian walk. And I just, for summer, one of my classes was personal and spiritual disciplines. And that class was a kick in the teeth. And I'm surprised I have any left because I suck at this job. For all the times I get it right, there are times when I don't. But what God reminded me through all of that is that, look, okay, you didn't do this when I said to do it then. But what about when you did? And your story kind of sparked a memory of I was in Walmart and I was just getting my stuff and I was looking ahead. There was one of those benches in front of the restroom or something like that. And there was this woman on the phone and she was crying. She looked upset. Now, same thing for me. I don't know you. You stay away from me, strange person. I'll wait. Give me about 2 months to get to know you. Then we can talk. But I see there and it's this stirring in my heart. It says, Christian, go talk to her. And not even that, that Hershey bar you see there, buy that, give it to her. That's all I'm asking you to do. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm a poor seminary student. I have bought exactly what I need for me to have my groceries so that I can survive until the next time I hopefully have enough money to buy groceries. And it said, what did I say? I said, fine. So kicking and screaming is kind of my spiritual gift as well. And so I buy the Hershey bar and I go up to this woman and she has stopped talking on the phone with whoever she's talking to. And she sees me and I said, ma'am, I don't know you. You don't know me, but I saw that you look kind of upset. Maybe I'm misreading the situation, but here, have this. And her eyes lit up like I just handed her like $100,000 bill. And like she just said thank you, and like we didn't say anything after that and say, hey, come to church, or like, hey, you know about Jesus or anything like that. It was just like that was enough right there that she knew someone else cared. And that was part of the lesson I was supposed to learn. It's like, hey, you always go to the worst case scenario in your mind, even though sometimes the worst case is a good thing. And that, oh, I have to have a
mm-hmm.
conversation with this person, get to know them, and then invite them to church and all this mess. It's like, no, she saw someone she didn't know with nothing he could gain to benefit from that, give her something in the midst of her strife. And that's something we all need to do. We need to get uncomfortable, because when we get uncomfortable, that probably means we're where he wants us to be.
Mm-hmm.
And our goals as people, not as Christians, is often to get contentment and just stay where I'm at and I'm fine over here. Like in my personal wall here, I have all these books over here I can read. I have all these movies I can watch. I'm going to stay inside my dorm room and never leave.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy. My tendency is always wanting to be, I always want to think there's such a concept as a lone wolf Christian. And that has never once been true in my entire life.
Yeah.
I'm called to be in community, not only with Christians, but in the world he's sending us out to. And if
Mm-hmm.
I stay here, sure, I can read. I have plenty of books here on theology and stuff like that. And that'll enhance my mind, and that's great. But if no one benefits from that but me, like, what is the point?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I agree 100%. Well, I think we're at a good stopping point. I know we still got a little bit of time left. I do want to here. I'll go ahead and stop the recording. Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed that video. We release new content every week, twice a week, once on Tuesday and once on Thursday. So don't forget to like and subscribe so you always see the newest content we have coming out. If you want to, you can check out a playlist that's down here and it'll take you into another video of ours that we think you're probably going to enjoy. Thanks. God bless.